Hello there, I hope you're doing well. So in this video, I'll go over some of the basic CLI commands or terminal commands as we call them that will help you access your computer and perform certain tasks through writing commands. Now, generally when you use your computer, you usually use the graphic user interface, which is a bunch of icons and buttons that you can click to perform certain tasks. But you can do the same things and more through command line, which is why it is very important for developers to learn. For certain developments, you need to access your computer through commands only. So let's start. Now on my screen, I have my terminal window open on the right side and the Finder window open on the left side. If you're on Windows and if you plan to follow along, you wouldn't require something called git bash to execute these commands. Or if you have a Unix-based server account, you can use putty to access that account and perform these commands. And if you're on Mac, you can just use the terminal. And on Windows, instead of the Finder, you'll have your File Explorer. So let's start with the most basic command. If you had to create a file on your computer, normally you would right click and there would be some option to create a new file. But how can you do that through command? We'll learn that first. So there's a command called touch that basically creates files. So if you write the command touch and you give it a file name, for example, name.txt and press enter, you can see on the left side it has created a file for me called name.txt. The size of the file is 0 bytes because it's empty, and it's a txt file because of the .txt extension. Now, one thing that I forgot to mention, my terminal is open at the same folder which is open on the left side. So you can see it says Unix Commands, which is the folder I am in right now in my terminal. And I've opened the same folder on the left side. So you can see the changes simultaneously. So the command touch creates a new file for you with the same name, and the file is empty. Now, what would happen if there was a space in the file name? For instance, touch first space file.txt. If I press enter, you will notice that this time the touch command created two different files. The first file is called first, and then the second one is called file.txt. If you have a space in the file name, the touch command thinks that you're telling it to create two files, first and then file.txt, which is why it created two files. So generally we recommend that if you want to create a file, if you want to create a file through CLI, make sure it doesn't have spaces, because spaces can cause these kind of issues. So if you wanted to create a file like this, you would use something like this, touch first file.txt without any space, but it has two words, first and file, and now you have first file.txt. Now these all files are empty at the moment. Let's try to add something in this file. So I can say my name is Aliha Muzaffar. Okay, save that. And now you can notice that the size of this file has changed to 27 bytes because I just updated this file. Now, I updated this file through the graphic user interface, correct? But now I want to view this file through command line. Like, I want to open the file and I want to see what is there in this file. For that, we have another command called more. So if you write more and then the name of the file, so name.txt, it will show you whatever is the content of the file. So whatever is there inside the file, it will display that for you. So it will print the content of the file basically. And in this case, I have to press enter to get rid of that end. So one command to view the content of a file is called more, and there's another command called cat, C-A-T, and then name of the file. It does the same thing. So there are two commands that you can use to view the content of a file. It's either more or cat. But if you try to use the cat command on a file that is empty, for example, file.txt has 0 bytes at the moment, it will not display anything. Okay, so far we've covered touch, more, and then cat. Now, what if I want to create a copy of this file? The file name.txt, I want to create a copy of it. Usually how you would do it is you would probably right click and click on duplicate or make a copy, something like that. But how can we do that through command line? We use a command called cp. cp stands for copy. So you would say cp, and then which file do you want to copy? I right now want to copy the file name.txt. So I'll name it name.txt here. So I'm saying copy name.txt, and then I have to provide the name of the copied file, or the name of the new file in which I want to copy the content. So I can say name copy.txt. And now you can see there is a file called name copy.txt, which is the same size as name.txt, and you can even see the content through more. So I can say, or let's use cat. I prefer that command, cat name copy.txt, and it basically has the same content as name.txt. So to create a copy of a file, you would use the cp command, then the file that you want to copy, and then the name of the new file in which you want to copy the content. So far what we've looked at is creating files. How do we create files? Through CLI on our computer, right? But what about folders? We also have folders on our computers. There's a command called mkdir, which stands for make directory. So mk for make, and then dir for directory. Directory is another term for folder. So if I say mkdir, let's say file commands, you will see there is now a folder called file commands. This is a directory folder, same thing. And it's empty also because it has nothing in it. So if you want to create a folder, you will use the command mkdir and then provide the name of the folder. Now, let's say I want to move this name file along with file.txt within the file commands folder. Your instinct would be to just drag and drop the file. So you would click on the file, drag it and drop it. But how do we do that through command line? Now we have a command called mv, which is used for move. So if you want to move a file, you would use mv. What file do you want to move? So I want to move name.txt. And where do you want to move it? So the next part is usually the folder. So I want to move it to file commands folder. Okay, so mv stands for move. Name.txt is the file that I want to move, and I want to move it to the folder file commands. If I press enter, you will see now the file name.txt is within file commands folder. It's not in the same folder, in Unix commands folder. Now the same way I can move file.txt to file commands folder, and now we have two files in file commands folder. So you use the move command, mv command, to move a file. Okay. Now mv command is also used to rename a file. For instance, if I want to rename this file to, let's say, student name.txt instead of name copy, I can say mv for renaming a file, name copy, which is the old name of the file, and then provide the new name of the file. So student name.txt. So mv for rename in this case, and then the old file name, and then the new file name that you want to provide. So if I press enter, this has now been changed to student name.txt. So move command can do two things. If you provide a file name and a folder, it will move the file. And then if you provide only file names, then in this case, like if you only provide file names, it will then just rename the file for you. So that is mv command. Now there's another command that we have, which is called ls, and it is used for listing. So for instance, here if I press ls, I can see everything that is there in this folder. So everything that you can see here is listed here. So there's a folder called file commands, there's a file called first file.txt, and then student name.txt. This is the listing of the Unix commands folder. Now usually with our commands we have something called flags, which allow us to get extra information or provide extra information for our commands. For instance, if I say ls -l, which is -l is the long list format. So here -l after ls is actually a flag, and it stands for long list. And so when I press enter, you can see I have the same result but in a different view. Now I have the file permissions, the owner of the file, the size of the file, and then when it was created along with the file or folder name. So ls with -l gives you a long list format. So that is the -l flag. There's another flag called ls -al, or just a for now. -a, if you use -a, you can see some extra information. We had file command folder, we had all the other stuff before, but we didn't have these dots. Now these dots are the hidden files and folder. Any file or any folder that starts with a dot in its name is a hidden file or folder. So if you want to see hidden content, hidden files and folder, along with all the files and folder that are there in this specific location, then you can use ls -al. So now we've combined the hidden files and folder along with the listing format. Now we have this folder called file commands, right? Let's say I want to move into that folder. Right now I'm in my Unix Commands folder. Let's say I want to move back. Let's say I want to move to file commands folder. So I can use a command called cd, which stands for change directory, which is nothing but change to a different folder or go into a different folder. Cd and then the name of the folder where you want to go. So I want to go to file commands folder, and if you press enter, you can see this has changed to file commands. Now if I do ls, it's going to show me the content of this specific folder, which is file commands. And if I do ls -al, I still have the two hidden folders. How do I know these are folders? Because there's a D here in the beginning. I don't know if you can see it. D stands for directory. And in the listing, if the first letter is D, that means it's a directory. So that is about changing directory. To change to a different directory, you have to use the command cd. Now let's say I want to go back to the old folder that I was in, which is Unix command folder. So I can just do something called cd ... means go back or go to the parent folder. So now if you check here, we're back in the Unix commands folder. Now the Unix command folder is considered the parent folder, and the file commands folder here is considered the child folder. Why? Because within the Unix command folder you have the file commands folder. I know it's a bit difficult to understand because of the names of the folder, but I think you get the idea. So if there was a folder within file commands, which I can show you how to create one, I can say cd file, or actually mkdir. Right now I'm in my Unix commands folder. I want to go to file commands folder and I want to create a folder called example. Okay, now you can see there's a folder called example within the file commands folder. I can go into this folder and you can see it clearly. There's a folder called example. Now here you can see example, the folder example is the child for the folder file commands, or the file commands folder is the parent folder for example folder. So if a folder is within another folder, there's a parent-child relationship between the folders. We've created this example folder. How can we delete this folder? There are two things you need to consider when you delete a folder or directory. The first thing is you need to make sure if it's empty. Now this folder is empty because the size is not specified and we just created the example folder, correct? So what you can do is, if the folder is empty, you can use a command called rmdir. And because right now we're in Unix folder and we need to get to the example folder, like we need to delete the example folder, so we need to specify where it should go. So file commands / example. So what it did was it went into the file commands folder and there it deleted example folder. So whatever is listed at the last gets deleted. So rmdir stands for remove directory, and it deletes the an empty directory. But what would happen if I try to delete the file commands directory? So for example, if I write rmdir file commands, it tells me there's an error, which is directory not empty, because this command can only work with directories that are empty. So if a directory is not empty, what you can do is you can use a command called rm, which is remove, -r, which means recursively, and then the folder name or the directory name. And now it got rid of the folder. What this does is it goes into the folder and it deletes everything one by one from the folder, all the files or folder that are within that folder. It gets rid of them and then it finally deletes that folder for you. So two ways to delete a folder or a directory: rmdir for empty directories and rm-r for directories that are not empty. But what if I want to delete a file now? These two commands are for folders. If I want to delete a file, I would have to write rm and then the file name. So in this case, I want to delete this file here. So I would write first, and then if I press enter, that file is now deleted. So that is the removing of files and folders. Now there's one more thing that should be considered here, which I think I kind of missed, which is PWD. pwd is a command that prints your working directory, which means it tells you where are you right now, because whenever you open your computer, it starts at some folder. It opens some folder for you. It's working in some folder by default. So right now, even when I'm using terminal, I'm using it at a specific folder, and that folder is Unix Commands. So pwd will print for you where are you working right now, which is your working directory currently. Right now I am in my Unix Commands folder, and this is the complete path for your directory, meaning how can you reach to this folder? How can I reach to the Unix Commands folder? I have to start from /user/ the username /desktop, and then finally I would reach Unix Commands folder. This path is called absolute path. Absolute path always starts with /. Okay, and this / is considered the root directory. This is the first directory that has all the other directories within it. And then if you start from this directory, you can go to wherever you want. So usually your absolute path will always start from / and then whatever is there after it. Now there's another thing called relative path. Relative path is the path that is created from wherever you are. Right now I'm in my Unix Commands folder, so I can create, or I can provide a path. So I can provide a path according to this folder. For example, if I want to create a new file, for instance, I can say touch test.txt. Now I didn't provide any path. I just said touch test.txt, and it created the file here. This is one way of providing the path, but I can issue the same command in this way: touch /users/ /desktop, and then /Unix Commands, and then test. Okay, I already have test, so test2.txt. It created the file in the same place, but I had to give this whole path because I had to start from /. This whole thing is considered an absolute path because the path starts from /. But this would be considered as a relative path because I've not provided anything. Command line understands that you are currently here, so you are probably asking to create this file within the same place. But if you provide the whole path, you can create it somewhere else as well. For instance, I can say mkdir, create a new directory in my folder here. I want to create a new directory called example, and it will create the directory here, but I provided the whole absolute path. Or I could have just said mkdir example2, and it does the same thing because it's in relative. It's assuming that you want example2 to be created within Unix Commands. Or you can even say touch example2 /test.txt. Now you're saying go to example2 /test.txt. So if I open example2, there's test.txt, because now it knows, because now it's assuming that example2 folder should be within Unix Commands folder. I know it can be confusing in the beginning, but the only thing to remember is if your path does not start with a /, you're using relative path, which means you're doing everything in accordance with your current directory, keeping in mind wherever you are in your current directory. If you write / in the beginning, it's absolute path. Otherwise, it's considered relative path. Now, there's another command. Let me clear this. There's another command called echo. Echo basically prints whatever you provided. So for example, if I say hello world, it's going to print hello world for you. So the echo command is used for printing. You can either print it on the command line or the console, or you can do something like this: echo hello world, and then provide this angle bracket. And then right after that, provide a file name. So for example, test.txt. I already have test.txt, so I've used that. You can even use a new file name, doesn't matter. Press enter. I'm not sure if you noticed, but earlier test.txt was empty, and now you can see the size of it is 12 bytes. Let's take a look at what could have happened. So for example, if I use cat test.txt, it shows for me that the content in that file is hello world, which is the same thing we echoed. Now here, this symbol represents the fact that you're taking all of this content and moving it to this file. Okay, but now what happens if I do this? Echo hello there test.txt, and then I do more test.txt. The hello world that was there in the file is now replaced with hello there. This means that it has removed everything that was there in test.txt before, and it has replaced it with the new content that you provided. So this kind of example does three things. First, if you try it with a new file, so for example, let's call it new file.txt. So if the file that you've provided does not exist, it will create a new file for you, just like here it created. But if it does exist, it will override whatever is there in the file. That means it will remove the content that was there and it will add the new content. So now if you do cat and then new file.txt, it has hi again, but it removed the previous hi. So what can we do to fix that? For instance, if I do echo by, but with two angle brackets, and then new file.txt, and then we do cat new file, you can see hi again was kept as it was, and then by was just added at the end of the file. This is the difference. If you use just one bracket, one angle bracket, it will do three things. If the file that you provided is not there, it will create the file and it will add the content that you provided. If the file was there, it will remove whatever you have in the file and add the new content that you've provided. If you want to retain or if you want to maintain the content that was already there and just add the new content at the end of the file, you can use two brackets. This is a way of actually adding data to the file. Normally you would have done it something like this, like you will open it, add something, and then save it, right? Instead of doing that manually through the command line, through the GUI interface, you can do it through command line using echo. That's not the best way of doing it, but for now it works. Let's try to do something difficult. Let's try to remove all the files that we've created. So I can just say rm dir example, because this is an empty directory. Okay, rmdir, I cannot do this because this is not empty, so I have to do rm-r for removing example 2, and then you can remove all the file names here. First file file.txt, first file.txt, new file, student name. There's another way of doing this, which is far easier, but should I show it? Now let's create a file called fruits. So for instance, you can say touch fruits.txt. There's a file called fruits.txt which has nothing in it because it's 0 bytes in size. I can say echo apple to fruits. Notice I just used the double arrow. It's always safe to use the double arrow because otherwise it will just override everything. That's apple. If I now do cat fruits.txt, you can see there is a list of fruits in the file. Now, what you can do is you can sort all of these. So right now they're not in alphabetic order. There's apple, watermelon, orange, mango, kiwi. There's a command to sort content of a file. There's so many commands in CLI that you're never going to know all of them. So one good thing about terminal or CLI is that there is a manual for literally every command. So for instance, I want to sort right now and I don't know what the command is. What I can do is I can say man, which is the short form for manual, space sort. So this means open the manual for sort. If you open the manual, you can see literally everything about that command. The first thing at the top is the name of the command and as a little bit of an explanation. So the command sort sorts or merges lines of text. So basically you can give it some information, some line, some text file, something, and it will sort it for you. And this is just a little bit of a description about how the command works. And these are flags that you can use. For example, the one that you usually use is -r here, which is in reverse. So for example, if you want to do the sort but in the reverse order, you would use -r. And I will show it to you now. Now, if you want to exit the manual, you will press Q and it closes the manual for you. So now the sort command, what I can do is I can say sort and then provide it a file, which is fruits.txt, and it will sort it in alphabetic order. So apple, kiwi, mango, orange, watermelon. It was actually in this format before: apple, watermelon, orange, mango, kiwi, and it's now in alphabetic order. If I want to show it in reverse order, all I can do is I can say sort -r fruits, and now it's in the reverse order. Now you can even do it this way. I can say something like sort fruits.txt, and then whatever is the result, send it to fruits az.txt. And now we have fruit az, and if you do more fruits az.txt, you can see it has all of these in alphabetic order, which is A to Z. And then you can do the same thing for the reverse. You can say send it to fruits za.txt, and if you do more or cat on fruits za.txt, you can see it is in reverse order. There are many things you can do in command line, but it's just with practice. that you can learn more. I'll just leave it at that because I think the video will get too long otherwise. But I'll show you one little thing before I leave, so it, increases your curiosity to learn more. So for example, if I want to delete all of these files with just one command, I can do something like this. I can say rm space star.txt. This would mean this would do something like this. It will remove all the files that end with .txt at the end. So it went and it removed every single file. It doesn't care what is there instead of star. It can be 1 letter, 3 letters, 5 letters, whatever is the name of the file, we don't care. But at the end of the file, it should have .txt. And if you noticed, if you didn't, you can go back and see. If you notice, all of those files had .txt at the end. So it went and it removed all of those files. So I think that's it for this video. I've made it in a rush, so I'm not sure if it was completely understandable, but it might give you some things that you can learn and then build on that knowledge by practicing even more. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. And yeah, that's it. Have a good day. See you next time.